Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a genuinely provocative piece of writing that challenges, well, pretty much everything we think we know about a deeply ingrained daily habit, recycling. Listen, whether you consider yourself a hardcore environmentalist, a total skeptic, or honestly just someone trying to do the right thing when you toss a bottle into the blue bin, this text is going to give you a lot to chew on. We're going to break down a rather intense argument from the source material, one that suggests the very systems designed to save our planet might actually be endangering us. Right off the bat, the author hits us with this massive paradox. How is it possible that the much trumpeted recycling is harmful to people? It sounds completely counterintuitive, doesn't it? I mean, we're constantly told that recycling is the ultimate green solution, the absolute gold standard. But the author invites us to look a little closer, making the claim that plastic, when it's recirculated and transformed into new packaging for everyday items like juices and beverages, actually hides some really severe dangers. So let's unpack this controversial argument together and see exactly what kind of evidence the text points to. All right, let's get right into it with Section 1, the plastic recycling paradox, a hidden danger. The text points to official scientific research suggesting that over time, recycled plastics are incredibly dangerous. And we're not talking about mild irritations here. The source links these plastics to some of the most devastating global health problems, especially in the Euro-Atlantic region. We're talking thyroid and hormonal issues, blood vessel conditions, infertility, diabetes, cancer, and even psychological problems like ADHD. The author really highlights a terrifying reality here. So much of children's food is wrapped in this exact recycled plastic. It's an argument that really forces you to pause and ask, what does this mean for the future of our species if the very processes we call sustainable are, according to the text, slowly poisoning kids? Which naturally brings us to a critical question in Section 2. Who created the problem? Assigning blame. The source sets up a really fascinating conflict between two groups. On one side, we have the masses. The text points out that almost all pro-green, save the planet movements place the blame for plastic pollution squarely on everyday consumers. You know the drill. We use too much, we don't sort our trash right, it's our fault. But on the flip side, the author argues the true culprits are the massive corporations. Think about it. Ordinary people didn't invent plastic. The masses didn't just decide to inject it into every facet of daily life. The text argues that the entities who control the massive resources, the production lines, and the markets are the ones who effectively forced plastic onto the global population. To really understand this, the author maps out a historical timeline. After World War II, we're talking the 1950s through the 70s, corporations started heavily pushing plastic. They took basic primary human needs like drinking water and entirely tied them to plastic packaging. People basically had no choice but to adopt it. Now, fast forward to the present day, the exact same entities that flooded the globe with plastic are now handing us the quote-unquote solution to all this waste, recycling. And by doing so, they've shifted all the blame and the penalties right back onto the public. Finally, looking to the future, the text asserts that this carefully engineered corporate solution is steering the public straight into a major, unavoidable medical crisis. To back up these concerns, the author brings up a pretty chilling historical precedent in Section 3, the Teflon parallel, a historic warning. The text draws a direct and honestly sobering comparison to the infamous Teflon crisis. You might actually remember this from the movie Dark Waters. Basically, highly toxic Teflon residues leaked into a city's drinking water, the groundwater, the rivers. It caused absolutely devastating health problems for the local people and animals. Lives were permanently altered, people died, and children were born with severe health conditions. It led to these massive historic lawsuits. But the real kicker here, the crucial point the source emphasizes, is that the companies producing the Teflon knew about the dangers long before the public ever did. The author essentially breaks down this corporate playbook into 3 ruthless steps. Step 1. Produce a material that you already know is highly toxic. Step 2. Obscure those dangers from the public. Keep them in the dark. And Step 3. Even when the truth comes out, even when you face massive lawsuits, just continue the lucrative commercialization of the product. The text is quick to point out that Teflon is still widely used today, and the author's deepest fear that this exact same playbook is being run right now with the recycled plastic industry. So, why on earth do we let this happen? The text takes a deep philosophical turn to answer that in Section 4, the Kantian inversion, people as a means. Okay, a quick bit of philosophy. The philosopher Immanuel Kant had this foundational moral principle: always treat humanity as an end in itself, and never merely as a means to an end. Pretty straightforward, right? But the author argues that today, major interests of control and wealth have totally inverted this principle. The argument is that those at the very top of the system, the few who are making immense profits, simply do not care about humanity. Instead, they treat everyday people merely as a means to an end. Human health is risked just to enrich a system that couldn't care less about them. It's a really profound moral indictment of how modern markets are operating. This philosophical shift leads us right into the final part of our explainer, Section 5, Rethinking Care, Humanity First. This quote right here perfectly captures the author's ultimate plea. The real problem is not plastic. The real problem is man and the care for him. The text makes the case that absolutely everything, our understanding of nature, of the universe, and even science itself, is filtered entirely through our human existence. There's no objective reality we can connect to outside of our own human lens. Because truth and common sense are human concepts, the author firmly asserts that taking care of humanity has to be priority number one. If we aren't putting human well-being above all else, then honestly, any attempt to manage resources is entirely missing the point. Which leaves us with this incredibly provocative question from the source. What do we save? A planet? A nature? For what? For whom? It's a thought that completely flips the standard environmental narrative upside down. If, in our massive rush to save the planet, using systems like plastic recycling, we end up poisoning the very kids who are supposed to inherit it, well, what is the point of our environmentalism? It really challenges us to rethink our priorities and ask if these corporate-driven green solutions are actually serving humanity, or just serving a bottom line. I hope this breakdown gave you a clear look into a very complex argument. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking those hard questions.